Good morning again, conference. It is such a pleasure to be speaking at a UKIP conference again today as your chairman. It's even more of a pleasure to be talking to a large group of UKIP members without the expectation that at some point I'll be announcing a new leader. The last time I stood on a conference stage like this, I was talking about what a pleasure it had been to act as your chairman, if only for a short time, and of how I was looking forward to going back to being happy. Things haven't quite turned out that way, and to those of you who were looking forward to my departure with optimism, I apologise. I hope that you will take comfort in knowing that your disappointment is almost certainly equalled by my own. As Adam's just said, it's been a real time since September. It's been a roller coaster. And at times, I have to admit that I've taken it personally. As one member wrote to me at the end of October, before you came along, Steve Crowther had been chairman for 6 years. During that time, he'd had one leader, and the party had evolved into a formidable political machine, increasing its number of elected representatives each year before reaching the pinnacle of winning the referendum in June. You, Mr. Oakden, it read, have been in the job for 6 weeks. You've had 2 leaders resign, 4 members of the NEC resign, 2 MEPs have an altercation, and then 2 of them resign. Have you ever considered that maybe you're the problem? Thankfully, those few months last year now seem like a distant and very unpleasant memory. Things have certainly moved on inside the party and out. As a result of your referendum victory, Parliament has voted to trigger Article 50, and Brexit is effectively underway, despite the wishes of Gina Miller, Richard Branson, Tony Blair, Anna Soubry, that odd chap that now runs the Lib Dems, and of course the Speaker of the House of Commons. Brimming with impartiality, John Bercow has said that we were not told the whole truth in the referendum campaign. And ladies and gentlemen, I have to tell you that he was right. We learned on BBC Radio 4's Today programme recently, broadcast on the 6th of February, that post-Brexit it will be virtually impossible for a British opera company to get a last-minute replacement opera singer flown in from abroad if one drops out with a sore throat. Now, I have to tell you, ladies and gentlemen, that when I heard this, I almost broke down. Why were we not told this before? How could we have been so blind, or perhaps so deaf? Ladies and gentlemen, I know that many people are wondering, now that the referendum is won, what is UKIP going to be for? What is our mission, our purpose going forward? Well, I can tell you that it is to defend and reclaim our country from fascism and intolerance. And I'm not joking. Last year, I saw an online exchange in which one of the usual headbangers said UKIP are fascists, or words to that effect. And he was answered by a real, genuine political scientist who said, no, they aren't. They don't even have a militia. Now, this, of course, cut no ice with the complainer because he had no clue what he was talking about, and even less interest in anything remotely factual. But it did get me thinking about what a UKIP militia would be like. And share in the image with me, if you will. I can tell you firsthand that it would be a nightmare to organise and completely immune to command. A fancy waistcoat and compression stockings would not form the basis of a credible uniform. The marching would be out of the question without a team of emergency chiropodists in attendance, and even then we'd need to agree on whether to start on the left or the right, inevitably ending up with an agreement to start on the common sense foot. And a mass scramble would not, I fear, prove very intimidating to our political opponents. But ladies and gentlemen, there really are fascists on the streets of Stoke-on-Trent today. And I'm not talking about the ghosts of the BNP. I'm talking about the mobile militia that are now being used as fronts for the Labour Party. The people who dart... The people who dart out of alleyways and assault our canvases, ripping off their rosettes and trying to steal their bags. They're the kind of people who throw things at our candidates and who, having been told the location of Paul Nuttall's house in Stoke, try to break into it in the middle of the night. These are the people who trumpet diversity, liberalism, and tolerance and yet throw things and hurl abuse at anyone who does not subscribe to their orthodoxy. If we need a mission, it is staring us in the face. We must claim our country back from these dreadful people. We must stand up for the liberty, tolerance, and genuine diversity, the kind of diversity which accepts that we don't all believe the same things. And what's more, we don't have to. The British way of living. So I'd just like to say to the vicious, intolerant hypocrites who are doing some of Labour's dirty work for them, go and do some research, find out what fascism really is, and then stop doing it. And to you, I would say, don't worry. The beautiful thing is that, A, they are comprehensively on the wrong end of history, with the ordinary people now rejecting them across the Western world, which is why they are so angry at the moment. B, there aren't many of them on the streets in Stoke. Even when they bust them in, they can only muster a handful. And C, the actual people of Stoke-on-Trent are wonderful, warm, and welcoming, and have largely given up on voting for the toxic old parties. And we have to persuade them to turn out on Thursday. Because they really do deserve better. They deserve better than Labour, don't they? Do the working people of this country really deserve as their Foreign Secretary this person? That's the wrong person. Go back one. There she is. Emily Thornberry, the titled barrister who sneers at their patriotism and culture. Or as Home Secretary, do they deserve Diane Abbott, who believes that Brexit voters are people who don't like seeing foreign-looking people on the streets? Or as Chancellor of the Exchequer, John McDonnell, who says in his Who's Who's entry that his hobby is to overthrow capitalism? Or just take this whole thing to its ridiculous conclusion and imagine for a second Prime Minister Jeremy Corbyn. There's nothing really to say about that, except that perhaps one of his big supporters, former BBC man Paul Mason, has just announced that UKIP voters are the kind of antisocial toe rags who would nick your bike. Now, I mentioned earlier about the changes within our party over these last few months, and I'd like to think that most of us have played a part, all of us have played a part in bringing about that change. But there is no doubt that the lion's share goes to the man that I now get the honour of introducing. I've always considered myself incredibly lucky to have had the opportunity to serve as the last chairman of Nigel Farage. And with that good fortune, I really was ready to step away, as I said I would, in September. The reason that I didn't was simple, because a man who was brimming with ability and passion and vision and humility asked me to work with him. I knew Paul Nuttall before he was elected leader at the end of November. I respected him both as a person and as a political force for good. I believe that upon Nigel leaving, he was the only person capable of bringing our party together, and I invested my hope in his promise to do just that. Now, just a couple of months on, our party stands reunified, up in the polls. Our membership is on the rise, and now with the potential of a by-election win, bringing us tantalisingly close to securing that vital second seat in Westminster. He is our leader, and with your help, the man set to become the next MP for Stoke-on-Trent Central, ladies and gentlemen, Paul Nuttall.